So tell me why you left. You said you went to the wilderness. Tell me why.
Like from a very young age, as a child, I have this sense that I can do something to like help humanity,
Mm-hmm.
and or like help the planet, and I have that desire, from a very young age.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, it's just like a very big, broad task. It's like, where do you begin?
Mm-hmm.
My whole life, I've been, well, I guess my conscious life, or as an adult, I have this desire inside, and I want to know what I can personally do about it,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm looking for those little things. And actually, even if you go, and this is what I believe, if you go into isolation somewhere where nobody even knows that you exist, and you pray, you meditate about like the world and humanity and all the species on Earth, you will impact the world, and maybe nobody will give you credit for it, but and maybe what you do is a very, very insignificant, tiny little part, but it is not that insignificant. I think we're all connected more in ways than we may realize, and you are affected by the sum total of everybody, and you also affect everybody. Why did I don't know, that's a really good question. I just I was looking for stars at nights, and I was living in New York, and I remember I was walking along the boardwalk, like along the Hudson River. They have those famous bridges,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted to see the stars, and I realized you can't see the stars because the sky kind of looks purple at night from all the lights of the city. You can't see stars. Or I wanted to swim in the river, you can't. It's polluted.
Mm-hmm.
There's like trash floating around. Or I wanted to go into some nature, and I didn't drive. And to go somewhere, you need a car basically to go outside. So I would take you know, trains or ferries to try to go like outside. It's just like it wasn't accessible. I really wanted nature, and I don't know why I did. It's just something that it's like comes from the heart. It's something that I had a true longing for.
So what do you feel like was the final step when you finally just left society entirely and decided completely to dedicate yourself to living in nature?
Well, obviously I didn't do it all in once. It wasn't like today I'm gonna leave, my apartment and leave using money to buy what I need, and having family and friends and I guess community, and then I'm gonna get everything from the forest, and I don't need anybody anymore, and it wasn't like that. And I'm gonna just sleep outside. I don't even need a tent or a tarp. I'll just sleep under a tree. It wasn't that way. It took a long transition for several years. I also spent a lot of time outside in the summer in Alaska, and then went fishing for salmon. Saw some, got to spend time in other parts of Alaska, including like southeast Alaska, which is very rainy. It's like a big rainforest. And then after that, I went to New Mexico, to one of my favorite wilderness areas, where that's when I really like took a leap.
That's when you went to Gila?
With a big backpack, and I was trying to be vegan, raw vegan, and I was even growing sprouts right in my backpack. I had 3 containers, and so I would get like 20 pounds of grains, like beans and wheat and that kind of thing, and I would sprout them. So you're growing food as you're walking. You only need like a couple handfuls of beans or grains, and you can fill up a whole big jar, like kind of like a half-gallon jar. At any given time, I had like sprouts ready to eat, and that way you can stay longer. Like food, obviously, most people, that's the first thing, that's their like barrier to staying out in nature. They're like, what are you eating? What am I going to be eating out there? How can you bring enough food for a really long time? So that's a trick that I figured out. But it's by foraging, you need to know
Yeah.
what you can eat out there wherever you go.
So it sounds like you were learning things as you went along, like fishing, foraging, sprouting, different things as you were kind of going along. You were accumulating a lot of the skills to be able to live out there. So like when you
Fasting.
said it was a transition, like
Absolutely.
a year's
It was like 5 years, I'd say, transition, to be honest.
where you're going a little bit by little.
After that, so I met this man in New Mexico. I heard about him for a while. One among several individuals that the local people around there, like little towns around Gila Wilderness, they said that there's this man named Doug, and he goes out with donkeys, and he can basically go in there naked, and he'll stay for like 8 months.
Wow.
That he knows how to do everything. He can make clothing out of natural fibers. He knows how to find medicine plants, what cures against what, and how to find foods. He can make fire with sticks, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So I met him, and he offered to teach me. And we took a walk for like 20 minutes. We just went for a walk for 20 minutes. And in those 20 minutes, he showed me 8 like of the most common plants that I see everywhere. And he was able to decode to me their value. Like he told me how you can eat prickly pear cactus. I had no idea. If I knew, I would be eating that.
Yeah.
Like the actual cactus, like here people eat nopales.
Yeah.
And it just, I don't remember, it was a long time ago, but basically some really, really common weeds that I've seen everywhere. He told me like their medicinal value, or like how to eat it, and it was just very, very inspiring, very empowering to me. But yeah, he told me this one main thing. He said, if you really want to learn how to live in nature, you have to abandon everything that you have. He said, I had all the gear I needed, and it was very nice things. It was like the best knife, the best hiking boots, the best waterproof backpack. I was ready for everything. Like I had a rain jacket, and then I had a warm sweater, and I had a guitar with me, and like a survival shovel to like dig or construct something or use as a weapon. You'd like protect against the bear or something. And I had, I thought of everything, what I need to live out there. I even had books, and I had a laptop and a digital camera, and a cell phone. And sprout stuff I really love cooking, so I had all kinds of herbs and spices, oil, vinegar, soy sauce, and I would plan my time. Like eating is really important. I'm a gourmet, so I love eating very well. So I would come up with all these recipes and get everything advanced, to bring out there.
Yeah.
And he said, why don't you just go in without nothing? And I've taken up his challenge, but only when I got to Hawaii I could do that. And
be without anything.
I did, that's kind of like top-notch, survival.
Yeah.
So I just had a knife, basically, and a lighter, and like an empty bag, like a very small bag with other empty bags for collecting plants.
Yeah.
I would, with that knife you can cut down some tall grass and make a comfortable little bed. And if you're cold, you can build a fire. And so I've done that for a few years. That's, I would say, that's definitely when you can just really, really, abandon society and just go live in the wilderness where you can just walk around without anything extra, without having like a special tent, or food that he needs. That would be like the top level. I've had different lifestyles basically, but most of it has been like the whole island is basically like nature, and there's this one part of the island called the Nepali coast where it's just really steep cliffs, very, very steep cliffs that drop into the ocean, and in between them there's these little valleys, and so you can literally walk from one valley to another within like an hour, and you're in a totally different climate. So there, that part that has no roads, it's very wild. So I spent many years living there permanently.
Okay.
I spent many years like that, nomadic, just constantly walking from one place to another. And when you walk around, you can cover a lot of ground. And you have your best chances to find something to eat. If you're gonna be doing that, you can't be sitting down.
Yeah.
And so I've done a lot of these things. I've learned how to, like, there's a lot of wild chickens in the island. I learned how to catch them and cook them on the beach. And I learned how to, fish in certain places, or how to catch prawns, like big shrimp in the rivers. And I even did some snaring of wild goats in the mountains. And then I also learned how to, later on, when in the last few years that I was living there, I established camps, and I started to plant things that just keep growing. This is something that I really like to say, is that for me, in my experience, when I go on a trip, like if I go on a hike and I'm walking every day, either with a backpack or without a backpack, just the fact that I'm spending time in these different areas of nature, and if I'm not around other people, like usually I'll be by myself. After a couple weeks, my consciousness starts to shift. It's a different consciousness than this, and it's much more fine and much more peaceful, and the mind is very quiet, and I feel like communion with nature. And it's like I merge with, I call it mother. I always address her as mother, like Mother Earth, Mother Goddess. And it's like there's this communion, and there's a back and forth dialogue, and it's like I'm very intuitive, and I asked for guidance, something practical, like where do I go to find water, or where can I find something to eat, like that. So I feel very connected, and feel at peace. You feel like you're not alone, and feel very nurtured. You want to know about Lemuria?
Yes.
What do you want to know about it?
I guess just what you know. I'm interested in it, and maybe what about it calls you, and then what you know.
Well, like, in the Bible, it starts off with the Garden of Eden. I think that's a reference to a timeline that is Lemuria. I think it went on for many thousands of years. It's like a whole age. It could be, it's unclear to me, like times, but it could be up to like 60,000 years when there was a totally different civilization, almost like a different race of humans, that everything was perfect, it was in harmony with nature, that you can communicate to other birds and animals and trees, like telepathically. Everything was in perfect harmony. It's like perfect spirituality, perfect unity, and it's all about love, connection, interconnectedness. It's very gentle, it's very beautiful. That's all very feminine, and that's what I believe Lemuria was, at one point. And then out of that came another civilization, like birthed Atlantis. And Atlantis was human experiment, and it was more about duality, power, technology, and sexuality, like commerce, business. I think a lot of the things we have now in our modern world, like as in developed countries, I think that is direct reflection of Atlantean times, which already was like 13,000 years ago. So Lemuria existed when Atlantis went down. Lemuria went down as well.
So you were thinking also, you were telling me where you thought it actually was, if it was an actual geological place.
Pacific Ocean.
Pacific Ocean.
Islands of Hawaii would be like the high mountains of this continent. And I believe some places like Southeast Asia, they have that really sweet, kind, beautiful energy. That's what Lemurian energy is like. It's really gentle, it's very deep and wise, and very powerful. Nature, for the most part, is very feminine. In general, like this whole planet is a goddess, is feminine. And I think that Lemuria is really like the medicine that this world needs right now. It's to integrate the gentle ways and like respect for nature, just respect in general. What is respect, and how can we live in harmony with our world and be in respect to this planet and to each other, to ourselves? That's a really big missing piece, and I had to learn for myself, some of these like ancient traditions through Hawaiian teachers.
What was the other place you mentioned? You said Lemuria, Atlantis, and then there was a third
Hyperborea.
one. What is that? What was that one?
That one I only know a little bit about, and I just recently started to learn about it. Supposedly it was above the Arctic Circle.
Okay.
And it was an island nation, and it was very isolated. I think they were warriors. It was like to develop toughness. And in your spirits. And I come from Russia. I feel like a lot of people from that region have that kind of toughness. And it's like it's in your spirit. It's not necessarily anything else. It's kind of like a spirit to it.
And then what do you know about like light codes and stuff in the crystals, like in the Lemurian crystals?
I know people that speak like light language, and this all comes from the intuition. I don't do that personally. So I don't know anything about it. I've just seen other people that do that, and or like creating like a crystal grid on Earth, and like a sacred like sisterhoods. I'm a little bit aware of those things. I've crossed paths with people that are involved with that. I personally, I'm not part of that. What I do have is it's a vision of a bright future for humanity, and I hold that, and I have that in my presence. I believe that there are certain souls that have come here for a purpose at this time. Just the presence alone has a tremendous effect and impact on everything for healing, for peace and love. What I have is it's not from me. It's something that I received while I lived in Arizona, and that it's something that harmonizes technology and nature into one, and it's like a vision into our distant future, that it could be a civilization for the next several thousand years. It's like the places that really need help, like where it's like badly depleted, like farmland, nothing grows there anymore, or like places like the poorest places on earth are like very polluted, that there's a community that settles there and they build these domes, these greenhouse domes that look like crystals, and it's a shape of a crystal. It could be any shape that is visually in harmony with nature. Like our cities, the way we build them, they don't quite look so in harmony, they're very separate. And the crystal is like an automatic sacred geometry. So my design is like crystal domes, and in them you can live and you can create a nursery and you grow native trees of that region. And every year or so, maybe more, it depends on your climate, but you will plant those trees around. So you're engaging in a reforestation. So the way that you live, your shelter is growing trees, and then you're growing forests, basically. And at a certain point, the forest creates its own rain cycle. And just the way that we've been, our civilization, we cut trees down to build cities, and we're creating more and more of a desert climate. If you like to reverse it, you have to reforest, and you're creating more of a balanced climate where you can grow foods. There's going to be, animals can thrive. It's a more stable climate, and you grow the trees around the domes. So your houses, your shelter is like a temple, sacred space. It's like a personal temple and a shelter, and it's grown out of living trees.
They're grown around it.
That graft into one another.
Okay. And so the beginning structure, what is the beginning structure made from?
Well, like a crystal, you have the top part, and you start off with small, like a kind of like a six-sided pyramid, and then you raise it, like it grows. The whole building grows over time. So it starts off small, and then when you plant trees around it, and then the trees overgrow the structure, you keep raising it. So it rises over time.
Oh, wow.
It's like the whole city is growing.
Yeah.
Because it's the nature of its living tree structures. And they just get stronger and, and better.
And so the type of tree that it is going to be depends on what area you're going to make.
Basically, there's species of trees that can graft into one another.
Yeah.
It has to be like that.
Okay. And this was the vision that
Like
came
where
to
you live, there's a lot of sycamores.
Yes.
Sycamores are a perfect tree that can grow into another sycamore.
Right.
Crepe myrtles is
Yeah.
another one.
Yeah.
So when I was spending time there, I was exposed to the crepe myrtle, which is very strong. And that would be perfect for creating like a furniture. You totally can make like small buildings out of it, but bigger ones would be like sycamores, oaks, can graft into one another. That'll live for a very long time.
Yeah.
But you don't have to wait, like your whole life for your shelter to be finished. It'll just grow as you're in there. You just live in the crystal greenhouse, and then it just expands and grows more.
So this was what you received when you were in Arizona.
Right. It's also like the biggest hurdle, I think, is like our consciousness, that a lot of our programming, that we dominate nature. It's a very like masculine approach to things, and like we control nature, where there are ways how you're able to cultivate land and grow the food that you need to support like your family, your people, without destroying everything, without clear cutting forests. And I think we all need to find a better way. This isn't it. This is actually a very young stage of humanity, and we need to evolve. We need to find that harmony, and like how to live with each other and how to live on this planet.